If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a direction, you can basically make any decision and you've got no idea whether or not you've ended up close to where you wanted to end up.
Greg Crabtree said it beautifully, that he who aims at nothing hits it with amazing accuracy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how can you say, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the track, whether or not you ended up where you wanted to if you don't have a plan? Plans never translate to reality completely, but that's not the point. You've got far more chance of getting somewhere if you at least have a plan. That's my take.
Yeah. And there is a lot of cards and podcast episodes that are touching this subject in one way or the other, right? 20-mile march.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where did all the money go? Right? The reactive versus proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot create a future that you don't imagine first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Then if you don't do that, you're just in for the ride. Right, and you might have imagined it wrong, but but that is the point. You do have a direction, and you do have a expectation of how the steps along the way are going to look like. So you know when you are on different path and whether you need to correct what you do or whether you need to correct where you're aiming. Mm-hmm. Right? Because both of those could be valid based on the situation. The plan is not carved in stone. It's usually just a few inconvenience electrons in a system somewhere. So, you can move things in a different way. But the point is to having it and being deliberate. I'm making a decision about what I'm going to do tomorrow because this is my plan and this is where I want to go, or because I got this new information which is telling me that I have to correct my plan. Otherwise, I'm just I'm just in reactive mode. I'm just at the whim of reality, and I'm just relying on luck and the fact that maybe I'm going to improvise better than the other guy, but that's not a strategy.
Absolutely. Welcome back to Cardcast. As always, I'm here with Milan Vavirka, and today we're going to talk about a new card, another card, a card we haven't talked about. So let's shuffle that deck and let's see what pops out.
This card was inspired by a post. It's a LinkedIn post talking about uselessness of planning that triggered me a little bit because I'm a big believer of the saying that plans are useless, but planning is essential. What do you think?
Well, I mean, just so I understand, was the central theme of the post that there's no point in planning? Planning is just not worthwhile. Was that the central theme of the post?
Yeah, absolutely. Saying that things change and no prediction ever holds. In an early stage company, so setting them up is just it's just a waste of time. So no one hack, no three hack.
Yeah. I've heard that said before as well, as in planning's useless, and particularly in the context of an early stage company where there's so many variables and you're still trying to find a viable business model. But I think that view misses the point, and I think the fact that whether you plan, if you plan and then acknowledge that the plan is actually unlikely to roll out exactly as laid out in the plan, if you acknowledge that that's probably going to be the case always, to greater or lesser degrees, a plan is never perfect, and you never actually, it never translates to reality, down to the day, down to the hour, down to the minute. So if you accept that a plan is just a best guess at a point in time, then for me, plans and planning are absolutely vital. They're not negotiable. You have to have plans and planning, but you've got to go into it.
I'm with you.
Yep.
I'm with you, but let me play the devil's advocate here for a second and say, okay, so if it's not going to be right, if it's not going to be, what's the point?
Well, even if it's not completely right, it's more right than not having a plan at all. That's my perspective. If the plan is 70, 80% right and you get to 70, 80% by the end of the time frame that the plan is rolling out for, then you've got a lot more certainty than if you just had no plan whatsoever. Because if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a direction, you can basically make any decision and you've got no idea whether or not you've ended up close to where you wanted to end up, wherever that is. If you don't have a plan, all roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to Rome.
Greg Crabtree said it beautifully, that he who aims at nothing hits it with amazing accuracy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how can you say, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the track, whether or not you ended up where you wanted to if you don't have a plan? Plans never translate to reality completely, but that's not the point. You've got far more chance of getting somewhere if you at least have a plan. That's my take.
Yeah. And there is a lot of cards and podcast episodes that are touching this subject in one way or the other, right? 20-mile march.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where did all the money go? Right? The reactive versus proactive. Like you cannot create a future that you don't imagine first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Then if you don't do that, you're just in for the ride. Right, and you might have imagined it wrong, but but that is the point. You do have a direction, and you do have a expectation of how the steps along the way are going to look like, so you know when you are on different path and whether you need to correct what you do or whether you need to correct where you're aiming. Mm-hmm. Right? Because both of those could be valid based on the situation. The plan is not carved in stone. It's usually just a few inconvenience electrons in a system somewhere. So, you can move things in a different way. But the point is to having it and being deliberate. I'm making a decision about what I'm going to do tomorrow because this is my plan and this is where I want to go, or because I got this new information which is telling me that I have to correct my plan. Otherwise, I'm just I'm just in reactive mode. I'm just at the whim of reality, and I'm just relying on luck and the fact that maybe I'm going to improvise better than the other guy, but that's not a strategy.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the things I think is really important is the notion that you should actually plan. You should start with the end in mind and then work back from there. And that's the opposite of what most people do. They'll say, okay, well, this week I need to do this, and the week after that I need to do that, and then next month I need to do this. It might actually get you to where you want to get to, but that's probably more just good fortune rather than any real intent. So if you start with the end in mind and then bring the plan back towards today, first of all, you'll understand whether or not it's achievable. Have we taken on too much? Is it actually realistic? Is it feasible to actually get to that point from where we are now to where we want to get to in that time frame? And you, like me, you probably introduced the notion of sprint lanes in the first quarterly meeting after a kickoff. And I often get very mixed reactions to that. Some people just go, this is brilliant. I don't know, I can't believe we haven't done this before. And other people say, well, what's the point of doing it down to that level of detail? It's not going to pan out like this. And again, they're missing the point. Having a plan, even if it's not perfect, even if it's going to change, is better than not having that plan. And when I roll out sprint lanes, I find that the customers, the clients that I work with, get far better at achieving their goals by the end of the quarter or at the end of the time frame. Have you had a similar experience, or what is your experience?
Look, 100%. Sprint lanes are so powerful because instead of being in the week 10 and seeing we have 6 weeks left to achieve what we said we would, or versus being in a week 3 and seeing, hey, this is not really panning out the way we thought, something's going on here, let's rethink the plan. Again, being proactive rather than reactive, being ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. When you're flying an airplane, right? They said never point the airplane unless you've already been there in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, the airplane is flying you. And I think it's exactly the same thing with business. I would like to add one more thing to what you said, because I was like, it's reactive, Dr. Benjamin Hardy's teachings
Yep.
ran through my mind when he said about imagining the future first as the starting point, which I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. I think what is also important is that it becomes a filter.
Yes.
Because then when you're looking at an activity that you are doing or planning to do, is this actually helping me to get there, or I'm doing it only because we've always done it?
Yeah. And,
Right.
And it's not just a filter; it's a magnet. It drags, it pulls towards the goal, the things that are going to help you get there, and it repels the things that are going to get in the way of you getting there. That's not useful. That's not going to help us get us to where we want to get to.
Yeah, I am. I might alienate some listeners, but I'm not big into the whole concept of manifestation, or how we, or also known as wishful thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that a plan acts as a magnet because it provides that point of view, that provides the ability to look at your activities with the lens of, is it helping me to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Is absolutely true. And I think it's somewhere deep in our psychology, right? Again, we cannot create what we don't imagine first.
Yep. So planning, goals, there's all these words that people use. How should people
strategy? Don't forget about that one. There should be a card of its own, and it probably will be. But yeah.
So how do we distinguish those different terms so that we can at least get our understanding of those concepts across?
This is so funny because literally yesterday, as this recording, I'm in a meeting. We are running a monthly session with a client of mine, and we are preparing ourselves for an annual that will be in 3 weeks. So we're having sort of those discussions and saying, our strategy is clear. We're going to hire 10 people. I was like, stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
I saw in the split second, he knew already that I'm going to stop him. This is a very, very brilliant person. It's like, this is the wrong way to think about it, isn't it? I said, yep.
Yeah, that's not a strategy. That's a plan. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not even a plan. That's one step of a plan.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like that. So let's really talk about it, right? So planning is the process of imagining the future state and breaking it down to what needs to be true and when in order for us to achieve it.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
Fair?
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Just ad-libbing, right? Mm-hmm. Plan is the roadmap, the step-by-step. Peter Oxley, talks about it when, I think we mentioned him in the trip to LA plan, or trip to New York, I think, right? It's like, okay, first we're going to go there, then we're going to go there, then we're going to go there, then we're going to go there. And if we are here by the then 5, we know that we are progressing according to plan, right? All good. Strategy. Will you take that one?
So strategy for me is if we take the Michael Porter definition, it's what makes us unique in the market, in our environment.
Is there any better one?
No, absolutely, yeah. But not just that, it is the things that you have to do or the things that you need to have that are going to position you so that you can be that. So it's not just where it's not the position you want to take, it's also the things you have and the things that you need to be able to do that's going to get you to that position.
Exactly. So if we unpack it, we'll say first comes the strategy, which is how are we going to achieve our overarching objectives? Mm-hmm. What is it that is make us unique and uniquely positioned to achieve those outcomes, right? Plan is how are we going to execute on those activities that are going to help us achieve such set position.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And planning is the process of figuring all that out.
Yeah.
Starting with the strategy and working backwards, or starting with the obviously purpose and objective, the foundations, right?
Yeah.
And then working your way backwards from there.
So I think
confusing between them is.
Yeah, and I think we both agree that the planning isn't useless; it's absolutely vital. But the plan has to then be executable. And if it's not executable, then it's not a viable plan. And you're not going to achieve the outcome, the goal. And that's not going to put you in a position where your strategy is going to come to life.
I remember who said wise words of being stubborn about the goal and flexible about the details.
Yep.
Right. I think that sums it up as well. Like the plan is subject to change based on new information that is inevitably going to come along the way.
Which is why we don't plan out in detail more than a quarter, because 3 months' time, the world could have changed. There may be a better way of getting to the outcome than what we've envisaged 3 months ago or 6 months ago. So having those relatively short planning horizons means you can adjust, you can course correct. You can plot a different path up the hill or the mountain that still makes you get to the end point where you want to get to at the right time, at the right place, but bringing in what you know right now rather than what you knew 3 months ago, 6 months ago.
Well, if you listen this far, you probably have something to add, and we would love to hear from you. So, subscribe or like or make sure that you're getting this. And there are conversations happening on LinkedIn or on these whatever channel you're getting this podcast from. We would love to hear from you and see what you think about whether to plan or not to plan.